Hey folks, thought I'd do another quick video, a sort of report on maybe a 3 month report on UK commerce, buying and selling in the US, UK, not the US. This here is a heartwood guitar that I've had almost from the beginning and hasn't sold. So the first thing, and it's one of the best playing acoustics that I've worked on yet. One of the Gear 4 Music brands. But anyway, the first thing I've noticed about buying and selling in the UK, and I'll give you the distinction of the different platforms, is that people are very brand conscious. And that's no different from the US. Although in the US, I sold more unbranded or non-fashionable brand stuff because I had more local sale traffic through Craigslist. More of that in a minute. But on eBay, I've noticed I get Tanglewoods. It's a brand people have heard of. They sell. I get Harley Benton. It's a brand people have heard of. They sell, although they'll only sell cheaply. If I get a Court or an Alvarez, it'll sell. But if it's something people don't know about, it tends to sit around longer, as in the case of this heartwood guitar here. eBay is the most successful of the three platforms that I've been using. I'd say eBay has even more of a monopoly on the market here in the UK than it does in the US. I think in the US you have Reverb. People tend to sell more used on Amazon. So you got Amazon, the private sellers, eBay, Reverb, and then you've got local selling markets like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that. So you've got a good load of very basic marketplaces, and you can get into OfferUp and all those terrible ones if you want to. I tried it and didn't like it, so I stuck to the main ones. But here, eBay still rules. It's still the number one. However, with eBay, it's almost all collection only for guitars. I'd say only maybe 20% of the listings are for shipping, which is a bit annoying because collection only is fine, but it reduces you to a geographic region for pickup. It doesn't make sense for me to drive to Newcastle, 3-4 hour journey to pick up a guitar. So that's the first thing that's a little bit annoying, is it's more collection only, or pickup as they call it in the US, less shipped. And also eBay does not let you put that in the filters. It does not let you weed out all the collection only and just look at the people who are willing to ship the guitar, which is very, very, very annoying. If anybody works for eBay sees this video, change that. I have no idea why you don't have a filter that allows people to look at guitars that are shipped only. It doesn't make any sense to me. It was explained to me in the US that they did that because otherwise the pickup only guitars would get overlooked. Nobody would look at them because, of course, the US is a much bigger geographical area, and there's less pickup only sales. Although it's growing, it's less of a percentage of the total sales on the eBay market than it is here in the UK. But it still rules. I still have done most of my sales through eBay rather than anything else. It seems to be a more streamlined, ruder version of eBay. It doesn't have quite all the bells and whistles of the US version. However, it seems to monopolize the market here, and people tend to use it more than anything else. Of course, people go to guitar shops as well. But a lot of people resort to eBay if they're doing any sort of, buying online. Amazon seems to have very little to no presence when it comes to used guitars. It's almost all new. They have far less brands, far less options available on Amazon. If you do a search for guitars, you don't see nearly as much of the volume as you would on the US site. even with the big names, if you look up Fender, Martin, Taylor, that sort of stuff, there's not the same bunch of options. And there's not as much used, and there's not as much Amazon Marketplace activity if you want a scratch and dent guitar, which is unfortunate because in the US that gives you plenty more options. Then we have the two local sellers. One is Facebook Marketplace, which is still developing over here. And for guitars, there's no shipping option. You can put it in your description, will ship for extra payment. However, you don't have the automated shipping that I had available in the US, which has only been added in the last year or so. So I think it will be added eventually here in the UK. For smaller items or for different kinds of categories, I see the shipping option is now available on the UK for UK locations. But however, guitars, when you put in a guitar, it doesn't have the automated shipping. And so therefore people are less likely to buy something shipped just because you say you'll ship it in the listing description. However, I have sold a couple of things. I think I've shipped one thing on Facebook Marketplace. The person made an eBay payment, sorry, a PayPal payment. I shipped it, and then the other things I've sold on there, which is less than eBay, were local sales, pickup sales, or collection only as they call it here. The third one, which is not as good as I had hoped it would be, is Gumtree. Now, Gumtree, for those of you in the US, is sort of a replacement for Craigslist. Craigslist is not developed here unless you live in London or perhaps Birmingham, maybe other large metropolises too. But certainly in my area, no, the Craigslist for Bristol area is just not used. You don't see very many guitars on there. There's not much action on it. It just hasn't taken off here, but people use something called Gumtree. However, with Gumtree, it's like an auto trader type of site. You remember those, how rude those were? It's basically a very simple interface. You put up pictures, you put up a description, you can put in your eBay or your telephone number, and that's basically it. It annoyingly drops your ads after so many weeks, and then you have to repost them. You kind of have to do that with Facebook Marketplace, although they make it a bit easier on that one to renew your ads. And for some reason with Gumtree, I get tons of scam attempts, tons of illegitimate inquiries. A lot of times people saying, I can't download those pictures. Can you send it to my email? It'll be some AOL email or Hotmail or something, which is a red flag. And then they do the whole, I'll send a courier to your house, type of thing. And, basically they're trying to extort you. But it's annoying because most of the traffic you get on there turns out to be a scam, which doesn't make it fun to be on there. I have had a couple of sales on there, so I do keep my instruments listed on there. However, when I get a message, most of the time it doesn't lead to anyone coming to check out the guitars or a sale, so it's a little bit annoying. So therefore, eBay is still king and the most reliable of the three, even though in my last video I had to tell you about an annoying shipping situation on there. I think maybe the percentage of people buying from large chains might be a little bit bigger here. I don't mean Guitar Center and Musician's Friend type chains. I mean actual guitar shops like Guitar, I think, they have a few locations. Of course, Anderton's in Guildford and others. All of which have used items that they sell online, and they seem to get some good patronage. So in terms of buying guitars, you have some options in those areas. And of course, there's still a large member of the public that want to go and try a guitar, so they'd rather go down to their local guitar shop than try to buy one on eBay, which is another reason why perhaps the majority of listings on eBay are collection only, because it gives someone the ability to go and look at a guitar. That's not really what collection only is for. Technically, you're supposed to buy the guitar and then pick it up, not try it out. But I'm sure that plenty of people, when they're picking up a guitar, are going to look at it, strum a few chords, just to make sure they're getting what was advertised on the particular listing. So that's kind of how it's gone so far. As far as getting back to the brand conscious thing, the things that I tend to have sold the most, firstly, known brands. So of all the guitars I've listed, the Tanglewoods, I think have all sold in all conditions, with scars, repairs, you name it, they sell. People are familiar with it because it's a British company, and it has a pretty big market share here, so it's in people's consciousness. Harley Benton's pretty well known here. I've sold 3 or 4 Harley Bentons. The resale on them is not great. You don't get a great margin on it, but if you have particularly electric guitars, they seem to do really well. For the acoustics, I have sold a couple of them, but you tend to get lowballed a lot because they're offered for, cheap on Thomann, and people are, if I can buy one for 80 quid new, I want one used for 50 quid, that kind of thing, which doesn't make it a very viable market for reselling. The other thing I would say is electric guitars sell faster than acoustics, quite noticeably. I think every guitar I've listed that's an electric guitar has sold fairly quickly. I haven't waited too long. The Harley Bentons sold very quickly. Got what I wanted for them as well. And even the Gear for Music brands that I had sold pretty quickly. The Fasleys that I had sold fairly quickly. There seems to be a bigger demand for electric guitars at the moment. I also noticed that when I go onto Amazon and I look at the availability of guitars, I find that their electric guitar offerings, let's say in the 50 to 250 pound bracket, is very paltry. So that may be a reason why the used market for electric guitars is quite healthy and robust, is because the new market is a bit anemic. It's just something I've noticed. There's far less brands, there's less availability, there's less variety, I would say, in that low price echelon on Amazon and even eBay a little bit. So when you get a good electric guitar, if it looks good, if it doesn't have any major damage, and you set it up well, it tends to sell relatively quickly. I have a couple more electric guitars that I haven't even listed yet because I'm enjoying playing them, but I know if I did decide to put them up, they would probably sell within the week of me listing them. So those are just some of the observations I've made. There's a healthy amount of guitar channels over here. There's a lot of people for a smaller country. There's good representation all over the country. People in the South, Midlands, the North, the Southwest, where I am. There's a lot of good channels, a lot of people doing sort of this guitar community thing, and there's a good awareness about the availability of guitars. So there's not really, it's harder to have secrets over here because it's a smaller country, and things tend to get out more quickly, if you know what I mean. But at the same time, there's a healthy mistrust of lesser brand or even unbranded types of items. So you have to do a lot of work to convince people, no, actually this is a pretty good guitar, it's well worth the money, it's as good as a Squier, that kind of thing. None of this is negative, these are just pure observations. It's actually kind of fun to make these comparisons, having worked here for a couple, 3 months, and discover some brands like this one here that are not available in the US. And it's just, a different learning curve. And, you just have to apply yourself to figuring out, which companies are good, which brands are good, which selling venues are good, the procedures for doing things, which are slightly different. Here, of course, you have, a sort of side door to Europe as well, more so than in the US. So that's an interesting thing to explore as well. But anyway, there's some of my thoughts on the UK markets. Hope it's helpful. Please feel free to share your experiences in the comments below. All right. See you next time.